I know there exists the phrase, not all who wander are lost, but some people wandering are absolutely lost as all get out. I mean, there's been a few times I decided to go for a relaxing drive, clear my head a bit, appreciate the nighttime air, and then suddenly I zone back in from highway hypnosis and I'm like, dang, I have no idea if I'm even in my home state anymore. Sometimes you are absolutely lost, but there's always a way back. If you're driving, I'd recommend starting by turning around. If you're in another country, ask a local for directions. There's something you can do to find your way back to where you gotta be. But why not enjoy being lost? Why not enjoy your little adventure and see where the roads and paths take you? You never know what you're gonna find, and hopefully it won't be a hungry bear or something. In D&D, that's how you get some unplanned adventures. Your DM will probably hate you for wandering all over the place ignoring the plot, but hey, sometimes the DM has the right to smack a player in the nuts, and sometimes the player has the right to tell the DM to get bent. It's nonsense time. And in both cases, wanting to be lost or wanting to get back on the trail, you can find no better location for either than Sigil, the City of Doors. How does one get to Sigil? Why, by knowing exactly where you're going, or by opening a door and randomly finding yourself in a city miles in the sky and with a whole bunch of people seemingly interested in the fact that a lizard person from hell just walked out of a doorway into their local business. Let's take a look at this most interesting of cities, because even if you're lost as hell, Sigil has something just for you. Remember, by the way, we have a Patreon, and guess what? We added something real cool. Yeah, just as cool as our legally, definitely fucking General Grievous. Are you tired of the constant mind flayer bullshit? What if it was improved, better, more fun to play? Oh yeah, in an actual proper psionic class. We'll look no further, because we cooked up the Krakilith for those lads who want to go fish for compliments from their group. Not enough? Okay, well how about 2 subclasses as well for our brand new psionics class? Subclass 1 is the Psionic Arcanist Mastery, where you get our Subclass 1 is the Psionic Arcanist Mastery, where you are such a giga nerd you get to shut other people's magic off with your brain power alone. And Subclass 2, well, have you ever wanted to just have gravity powers? Like a grav gun from 40k, point at someone and just have them squish into a screaming pancake? Well, you can do that now too. Now, before we start, I have been informed that apparently, Sigil is supposed to be pronounced Sigil. This, viewer, is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. This is like GIF versus GIF, only this time the people saying the G sound are the idiots. Which is unfortunate, because the inhabitants of Sigil get angry when you don't say Sigil. They're all a bit touched in the head, methinks. As for what this place actually is, moronic nomenclature notwithstanding, imagine a crossroads for the entire multiverse. That's what Sigil is. The city is shaped like a massive ring, and within it lies countless merchants, guilds, and anything you can think of. It ain't quite at the scale of a Halo ring where you can fit a planet in the middle of it, but it truly is enormous. You can see its scale above you into the horizon, stretching all the way across the sky and back into itself in a loop. Trying to fly from one end of the city to the other, as in just going through the middle via flight, is also near impossible, both because of the distance and because as a magical floating city, concepts like physical space making sense are, well, they're somewhat inapplicable to it, let's say. Also, I would like to invite you to explain yourself, Dutch. Why did you specify that as an American? I wouldn't understand the shape of Sigil because it looks like a donut. It's a big ring, that's all I needed. I've lost a lot of weight lately, man, come on.
Honestly, it was just an excuse to talk about donuts. I fucking love donuts, man.
The city is also known as the Cage for reasons that are actually less sinister than they sound. The only way in or out is through the various portals within the city. No one's keeping you there, but it's just hard to leave. Until you find a way out, the endless and almost insane architecture is your new life. You can, in theory, just jump off the edge, but I wouldn't recommend it. You don't end up falling down to the Outlands to their death, which is the realm where Sigil is, but you do randomly get thrown into some other dimension. Statistically speaking, you probably aren't ending up in a good one, so I really don't advise you do that unless you're actively being chased by people who are going to murder you otherwise. For a few more simple things about it, it does have a normal day-night cycle of 24 hours, but there's no sun. It just passively gets lighter and darker, and because no sun, they call it peak and anti-peak instead of dawn or evening. You can also use teleportation magic here, but the only kind that works for going in and out of the plane Sigil is within itself is a teleportation circle. Otherwise, you can teleport to other parts of Sigil, but you can't leave outright. Again, without that circle, you need to find yourself a portal within Sigil to get out of it. And gravity here works like any other ring world, where it's relative to the ground under you, and technically the people above you that are upside down aren't actually upside down. And for the weather, I've been told it's Birmingham. Fog, smoke, and drizzle is the mainstay here. Actually, on that note, a little more about the magic as well. As stated, teleportation magic barely works here, and in fact, as long as you're within Sigil, it counts as your home plane. No using banishment to cheat your way home, that ain't gonna work. Even the teleportation circles that work have to be special ones within Sigil, you can't just draw your own and be done with it. But summoning magic here is the funniest part, easily. You don't summon things from other planes while you're here, you summon something from within Sigil itself. Meaning if you summon, say, a water elemental, it's one from within Sigil. If there's nothing like that within the city, the summoning just doesn't work, and if it does work, they probably won't be terribly happy you just yanked them out of their day job. And this all works as it does because of the Lady of Pain, which is something I'm not going to explain yet because I want the viewer attention to remain. For now instead, what's it like to live within Sigil? Well, overall, I'd say that it's like any other city. Shops, markets, guilds, criminal enterprises. But because of the nature of the cage, people from all over the multiverse have ended up here, creating this cultural melting pot unequaled by literally anywhere else. It isn't just the prime material and different dimensions here that all connect, entirely different universes and D&D settings all converge here in the City of Doors. As Dutch has elegantly put it, it is the backstage of the multiverse. In between all your non-stop adventures in different realms, you can go to Sigil and find demons and celestials sharing a drink in a tavern alongside whatever mortal wandered in by accident. And this works out more often than not. Obviously, it doesn't always work, and to some extent, the authorities that exist in Sigil understand that a little bit of violence is just gonna happen, especially to newcomers unaware of what the city is all about. But they keep things much more under control than it otherwise would be in a different version of Sigil. Humans were the first species here, and a few scholars outright put forth the claim that humanity actually spread out from Sigil rather than being created. Humanity doesn't typically have a proper ruling god a lot of the time, or some other creator deity unlike elves and dwarves, which means this theory isn't completely insane. The government of Sigil is a slight oxymoron of a statement, as various different organizations and whatnot keep order and make rules as well as maintaining the city in general, rather than there being an overarching legal structure. Except the Lady of Pain, but again we'll get to her later, and she's much more hands-off anyways. A lot of these groups are inspired by some deity or cosmic rule and philosophy, but while gods can scheme to interact with Sigil and their followers can enter and spread their word, there's no way for a deity to properly enter the city. The Lady of Pain once again made sure of that, although I can explain that reason simply enough. It's because she doesn't want random assholes entering her house. The trade and commerce that happens here is much like life in the city, not conceptually different to what you would find elsewhere, but the specifics are literally out of this world. Blacksmiths are blacksmiths wherever you find them, but in Sigil, because things flow in non-stop from across all parts of all realities, they're using everything from iron to infernal steel to celestial ingots to ply their trade. Market stalls have food from everywhere from the Shadowfell to the prime material to the heavens themselves. Sure, a given merchant might only accept specific currencies, but you can spend your cash whatever it may be somewhere within Sigil. If you can think of it in Sigil, you can find it, even if it might take some effort to find some of the more esoteric stuff even within this city. On that note, traversing the city might be one of the biggest problems. It's a labyrinth of buildings, and that's ignoring the fact that some doors within Sigil might also transport you out of it. It ain't impossible, but without knowing where you're going or some kind of location magic, it's gonna be a pain. There are sedan chairs to help with this, which are big comfy chairs carried around by big lads. They're taxis, essentially. There's also totes, local guides and translators who can, for a price, help you out as you otherwise aimlessly wander the realm. Common is of course the most spoken language, because apparently common is common across every conceivable reality, but every language, the same as every currency, can be found spoken here as well. That actually goes along with the theory humanity originated here, and potentially took common across the multiverse with them. Even the animals native to this realm speak common, and another unique dialect known as Cant has sprung up as a result of every language ever all melding together within the City of Doors. Some of these creatures include rats, particularly cranium rats. They're rats that have somehow adapted to have psychic powers, and the city uses them as a communication system. It's like the funniest and furriest fax machine ever. There's only one kind of plant here though, unlike the various animals that have been brought in. Razor vine. It's a black ivy with razor-sharp stems and thorns and glossy leaves that half the city is in a constant war with to keep the plant contained, and the other half likes to plant on their houses as a defense mechanism against intruders. To be fair to those people, as much as I've seen the American South and how awful it is that kudzu is overtaking every single plant there, the plant that stabs you is a hell of a deterrent for at least low-level rogues. Now about those portals. They're everywhere. Damn near every doorway in this goddamn city is a portal to another dimension. But as these sorts of things tend to be in D&D, most of them aren't active at any given moment. Some are active at a certain time of day, while others are only active on a certain day of the year or under certain conditions or with a certain phrase being spoken. Otherwise, it's just the door. When activated manually, they typically only last for as long as a single turn of combat after being entered through, so if an entire party's walking through one, you all better go through at the same time. They're usually undetectable even by magic, though True Sight or Warp Sense spells can find them, and when active, they shimmer with light with the destination beyond them clearly visible. And again, there's countless of these goddamn things. I'd say there's at least a 50-50 shot that whenever someone builds a door in Sigil, it just turns into a portal somewhere random. Alright, anyways, I've put it off long enough. The Lady of Pain, what's her whole deal? I don't know. No one really knows. She looks almost human, but there's no way in hell she's a human. She wears ornate robes of the finest quality, though I don't think she's letting anyone touch her, so I guess they could be made out of rotten sheep wool for all I know. And around her mask-like face is a mantle of blades. Whatever the hell she is, though, she's at least as strong as a god, given that she can reliably keep other gods out of Sigil for thousands and thousands of years. She maintains Sigil as a cosmically neutral city, at least in terms of grand affairs and whatnot. The Blood War, for example, has no presence in this city. No wars between deities that in other realities are a source of non-stop warfare and violence can be found here. Sometimes you even find her floating through Sigil itself, doing whatever she might be doing, as unknowable as that is. She doesn't have a house or a temple or anything like that, she just kinda shows up places doing only she knows what. People tend to find anywhere else to be immediately when she floats on by, though. This is because when she looks at you, you feel and in fact go through the experience of being flayed by 1,000 knives, and that's if you're lucky. Otherwise you might just vanish. Sometimes people claim that every now and again she starts glowing with golden light, or shining like a freshly cleaned steel sword. No one knows why this happens. Maybe it's in response to a threat, maybe she's planning something and enacting a scheme, maybe she just does that sometimes. She's a distant deity, guardian, overseer. She's not terribly involved in day-to-day affairs is my point here. That's why all the various guilds and whatnot in the city do most of the day-to-day running, because she doesn't bother herself with it. Still though, the city exists as it does on her whims. The portals and way magic works only does because that's how she made it work. She can ban any person from entering as well, not just gods, so that's only done in extreme circumstances, and she knows every time someone new enters Sigil. She can also turn off all the portals. She most often does this when the various factions within Sigil get a little too angry with each other, and this is terrifying because of the implications there. Everything from the sewers to the water stops working, food can't enter the city. Everyone's gonna behave in this city, because if they don't, she's gonna turn the whole thing off and on again. But if you want to piss her off, then good news. I have rules for encountering her to share with you. Not fighting her. Encountering her. If you attack her or target her with a spell or some other way of interrupting her, which can in some cases be as little as asking her how her day is going, you are immediately overcome with agony and drop to 1 HP. If you still don't get the message, you get to go to the mazes. The mazes are demi-planes she's created to throw various dissidents and other people that bother her into. No magic can reach into or out of it, and because you don't age or need to sleep or eat or anything in here, you're cursed to an eternity of endless wandering. Rumors exist that there's a single portal somewhere within every maze you can escape from, but you can't detect them via magic if they do exist, and the mazes are all infinite each. Anyone who claims to have gotten out of one is always branded a liar and ignored. In spite of her offhand approach to ruling the city, she does have some proper underlings though. Known as Dabus, these silent floating beings float around, casting illusions to communicate and otherwise repair damaged buildings and help keep the city going a bit more effectively. Most people just assume they only exist for that purpose, but they also quietly take care of dissidents on the Lady of Pain's orders. After all, killing someone disrupting the city counts as maintaining the city, does it not? Anyways, yeah, that's kinda all there really is on the Lady of Pain, because anyone trying to find out more tends to suffer an eternity of pain. So what's the factional game like in Sigil? Who's in charge? Well, Sigil is technically an outer plane. It's also in the middle of all realities ever, but it's an outer plane as well. Because of this, it's subject to some of the effects of outer planes, where belief can solidify into proper power and the planes can be remade through it. The factions that hold the most power in Sigil, consequently, are equal parts organizational and philosophical gatherings of like-minded people. These are the people that control Sigil in the day-to-day running and governance of the city, and their power is extreme. Of course, they still need to be careful. Factions have been erased from Sigil previously, especially if they start getting a little too uppity and the Lady of Pain decides an en masse mazing needs to occur. Nevertheless, they constantly vie for more power, influence, and recruits, and led by factals that embody what their faction is all about, they can make life very good or very bad for you within Sigil. As much as I was emphasizing her power, you really gotta mess up to get the Lady of Pain's attention on you. These folks are much more in your face, at least in terms of making you face the consequences of your actions. They debate laws, and within the halls of speakers, the various factions pass laws for Sigil as a whole. Middle-ranking members called factotums not only do more of the grunt work for a faction, but act as clerks and whatnot for the city as a whole, and overall, as turbulent as the system can be, it mostly keeps itself in check. That, and of course, the Lady of Pain keeps it in check. Three of the most prominent factions are the Athar, the Black Cabal, and the Doom Guard. The Athar are... well, I can't tell if they're insane or they have figured out reality. They believe that the beings in D&D that call themselves gods are just really jumped up mortals. They figure that a true god is at least mostly incomprehensible, and so they try to know how what they view as false gods work to try and come closer to discovering the true god or gods. I presume among the other reasons they operate out of Sigil is because aside from maybe Eberron, they would be living in worlds with beings that, truly divine or not, are vastly more powerful than them and saying to their face, nah, you ain't actually a god. That's a great way to get your soul punched in the dick, so they remain in the city where gods can't show up and the closest thing to one present doesn't care. The Black Cabal are nihilists, but in a nice way. They think there's no greater meaning in life to search for, and that nothing makes sense and you shouldn't try and make it make sense. Life is just whatever you make of it, that's the point. Because of this, though, they're full of empathy and love helping others in need. After all, we're all in this shit heap together, why make life harder for one another? And the Doom Guard are nihilist doomers, but happy enough by those standards. They think eventually everything is going to fall apart, and everything you create is just going to collapse sooner or later. Full-on entropy appreciators over here. They don't think stopping any destruction really makes things go any faster or slower either. In time, when it's meant to, all will end, and that's that. With that in mind, they just kinda hang out, though. Of course, they're also great arms dealers, so to some extent they don't mind profiting off of someone ruining something else. Now, it has occurred to me just now that in this video about a city, I am nearly a full 11 pages of script into it and haven't really talked about, like, the actual city and locations in it. So how about we fix that? The city of Sigil is divided into districts known as wards. They each contain one or more faction headquarters, which are typically the most fabulous buildings within, and any building near a headquarter building tends to closely align with the faction's beliefs, if not outright being a part of it. Near the Civic Fest Hall of the Society of Sensation, for instance, you can find a whole lot of wineries, alehouses, and of course, brothels. The wards are as follows: Clerks, Hive, Ladies, Lower, Market, and Under Sigil. The Clerks Ward is Administration Heaven, or Hell if you aren't a fan of going to an entire city district dedicated towards the DMV. In all honesty, there are a lot of wondrous sights to see in this ward, to the point that you can argue it's one of the most beautiful parts in an urban sort of way. Everything is highly structured and rigid, but you can still have some fun. It's like Germany. You gotta fill out your 50 forms to drink a beer, but then you get beer. Otherwise, this is a massive part of keeping the city going in a mundane sense, because as it turns out, a massive ring world connected to everything by random portals is a bureaucratic nightmare. Locals, for their part, typically just send every random asshole asking for directions to the Hall of Information, where they can pay a tote for help, hire one of those chair taxis, or just wait in line until some clerk or other answers their questions finally. The Hive Ward, meanwhile, is a disrepaired shithole that even the Dabus at this point are neglecting. All of the buildings are completely unplanned and lopsided, and many of them are high-rises on account of the shit planning here, meaning the only way left to build is up. This is the bad part of town people try to avoid, that you can find some seedier establishments to enjoy as well as plenty of wet work to keep yourself wealthy. Just make sure to watch your wallet though, crime is rampant here. If something isn't outright illegal here, it's probably a profession that's still not looked at favorably by most. Corpse collector, for instance. Yeah, you gotta do it, but that's the kind of job you try and brush past admitting you have on a first date. It's fairly poor, patrols are infrequent here, and it really is just a citywide slum. On the plus side, some of the most creative people in the entire city can be found here. My guess for why? The people in this place want anything to do but think about how they live in the Hive Ward. The Ladies' Ward, meanwhile, is a distinguished, elegant ward. Regal and opulent, it's got wealth and power in equal measure and is happy to show it off. It's a fairly quiet place as far as activity goes, though, with frequent patrols by the factions the Mercy Killers, Fraternity of Order, and Harmonium. They ensure this lovely and scenic location remains as such by force if needed. In some ways, it's like Vegas, too, with casinos and whatnot dotting the whole area. Other than those few people visited unless they have official business, although official business and legal business are quite different. For all that the beauty of this place is fiercely maintained, it should be said that where you can find judges, lawyers, and more, you can find plenty of bribes flowing as well. In some ways, this place is just as crime-ridden as the Hive, it's just white-collar crime, so if you want your taxes evaded and to look good while doing it, head on down to the Ladies' Quarter. The Lower Ward is to me the quickest to discuss, but because it's what's the most important in a simple way. This is the beating heart of industry for Sigil, taking raw materials from across all realities and turning them into the various wares and more the city sells. Smog and smoke blanket the ward, all from the non-stop toil of factory workers ensuring Sigil stays an economic powerhouse. Some things that used to reside here like the armory have relocated to other wards for one reason or another, but at the end of the day, simple as it is, the lower ward is why Sigil continues to exist beyond that random plane where the Lady of Pain lives. The Market Ward, too, is a very simple place to go through. Money, 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 baby. This place is where wealth changes hands at breathtaking speeds and goods from everywhere can be found, bought, sold, and bartered for. There were once guild halls here, but as much as you can find influence from guilds still creeping in, as I've said, guilds in a large-scale way have fallen out of favor in Sigil. In fact, the Market Ward used to be 2 wards, one with the guilds, but with the faction's power kicked out most of the major ones, and joining or forming new ones is heavily discouraged. All sorts of problems do exist here. Given the nature of beings who visit Sigil, sometimes merchant feuds that turn violent last for centuries. Some people don't accept most currency and only want esoteric nonsense in exchange for their goods. And because this is still D&D, I assume that at any given point 10% of the entire ward minimum is playing host to an Indiana Jones-style merchant stall chase. Also, you are absolutely going to get scammed here. This is a marketplace connected to all of reality. The merchants here are going to nickel and dime you out of every single coin, artifact, and whatever else you might have. And finally, Under Sigil. Remember how the Hive sucks? Well, this is the sewers and other areas within the Ring of Sigil itself. This is an Underhive from Warhammer 40k. The remains of defeated factions can be found here. The worst of the criminals can be as well. Those cranium rats spy on all sorts of folk. Normal spies spy on all sorts of folk. Plenty of monsters too, just to make it that much shittier. There really isn't more to it than that. Scheming of the vilest sort can be found down here as well, and while the Lady of Pain could absolutely wreck shop here, she doesn't. As long as it doesn't endanger outright or critically disrupt Sigil, anything goes in her eyes. And of course, as anyone who's visited a major city knows, there's nothing quite like a city tour to get yourself acquainted with it and for the locals to scam you out of a whole lot of money. And naturally, the one I'm starting with is the pub crawl. I have a beer in my hands as I write this, and it's unbelievably hot in my house. I will not apologize for either cooling down or my high-functioning alcoholism. This is such a common thing here, in fact, that locals dub the crawlers the clueless because they are absolutely being scammed, which is also a general name for newcomers to the city. Most start in the ladies' ward at a tavern called the Speckled Rat, and end elsewhere at one called the Green Mill. They take you all across the city, and you can no doubt find plenty of alternate tours as well, because it doesn't matter what universe you came from. Everyone wants to see some sights, and everyone wants a good drink or 20. Sometimes they even have scams where they warn of potential monster attacks, but offer you payment for protection. Said monster, of course, is just a dude in a costume or with an illusion spell, although sometimes it is an actual monster, but a fully sapient one taking advantage of the fact that most newcomers to Sigil aren't familiar with its deal at first. Merchant tours, meanwhile, are all about grabbing people who look like they got some cash to spare and taking them all across the merchant ward, of course with the end goal of these poor bastards not having a coin left to their name after the fact. Naturally, again, most of these tours are taking them through garbage dealers with a few actually reputable stalls visited to give them the illusion of respectability. The totes in charge of these tours are usually bored, but frequently they get a cut of the profit, so while it is miserably draining in the most mundane way possible, the profit is worth it. Plus, some of them have learned how to be smart about it. Bring a chessboard or some dice to these tours, and if nothing else, you can keep yourself entertained while the clueless assholes are showing around bargain with someone infinitely better at it than they are. Gentlemen's tours, meanwhile, aren't a scam by and large, but they are trashy, take advantage of Sigil's poor, and at least slightly likely to get your soul taken depending on the exact one. These are the folk who want to see some magic, see some danger, but not actually put themselves in harm's way in a meaningful manner. So some totes take them on tours of places like the Hive Ward, letting them spit on the less fortunate because stereotypically evil nobles exist everywhere if you look hard enough. Totes that give them the illusion of actually being in danger are usually just cursed out, but the totes let the charade go on just long enough for those so-called gentlemen to go from insulting them to paying them for protection. Oh, and the reason I said there's a slight chance you might lose your soul? Some totes promise potential clueless assholes, clueless in both the noun and descriptor forms of the word, mind you, the chance to beat a succubus and other beings like that. And I've no doubt that not only do some make good on that promise, but some succubi are properly plying their trade, as it were. One random bozo losing his free will to a demon is absolutely not something the Lady of Pain cares about one way or another, after all. And the last tours are blood tours, which actually aren't fights to the death, believe it or not. Sigil is a powerful and established city, but even they acknowledge that people from outside of it still also hold real, tangible power and are oftentimes worth making allies out of. When one of those folk come on in and ask what's happening and who's in charge, assuming they aren't asking with violence on their minds, totes immediately make sure they are well taken care of. Not as marks, mind you, but as genuine payouts to give proper, actual tours and guides to. They take them to factional headquarters and the most other important places in Sigil, because if you've ever heard about some rich dude tipping someone $1,000 at a restaurant, you can understand why the totes aren't scamming these sorts. And if this rich and powerful person happens to make it big in Sigil, they'll no doubt pay their tote well, and perhaps even keep them as a retainer for advice and whatnot in the future. That, and one of the most common places bloods are taken, is Fortune's Wheel, a high-class gambling hall. Sometimes they pay for the totes gambling, which in a place like that is probably worth it for their time alone. And that was the city of Sigil. It's probably one of my favorite places in D&D, because not only can you find anything, but you can connect it to your own homebrew easy as can be. Have a random portal to it open up, and you can go from your own personally created world to any other one you can think of. If you wouldn't mind, liking, commenting, and of course subscribing are always greatly appreciated on this hellscape of a platform. And even if not, thank you for watching, take care out there, and have a good one. Me when Sigil, when the doors, she lady on my pain until I maze, I be mazing on her pain till I lady, me the teleport circle, me when flay me alive, lady pain mommy, I'm having a stroke.